How do you keep the current state of gaming fandom from depressing or discouraging you? I guess I mean you, in the general sense, for fans who aren't part of whatever the hell most fandom is now.
So the simple but unsatisfying answer is that I don't. I do often feel discouraged and dissuaded, and there are things I would like to do that I don't do, despite my innate contrarianism, because I know exactly what kind of ignorant, stupid reaction it would create. What depresses me that may not depress you is the feeling of betrayal that I get. So, for example, I feel like the gaming community in particular should know better than just about any other community that censorship is about as close to an innate and inherent wrong as there can be. You know, we have suffered multiple moral panics. We have censored ourselves when we shouldn't have. The dark days of the 80s, there were book burnings and role-playing clubs were banned. Even over here in the UK, though we didn't have it anywhere near as bad as the US. And then our Venn diagram as tabletop gamers overlaps with a lot of other nerd stuff in which the same lesson has been taught over and over again. The Comics Code, the Hays Code, the Oz Trial, Boiled Angels, the PMRC. We've been through all of this stuff, and yet there are people within the hobby who are begging to be censored, begging to be controlled, whether it be by government or corporate entities or outside of the 1984 paradigm and more in the Fahrenheit 451 paradigm, public displeasure because they're too stupid to understand something. Right? Like people will get offended at a game scenario that depicts evil beings doing evil things because there is a depiction of evil in the first place, and some people just don't like that and can't abide that. It reminds me of that apocryphal story where a mob turned up outside the house of a paediatrician because people are dumb, especially in crowds. So, then, it does depress me, it does dissuade me. That aspect of betrayal is one part. Then, previously, I have watched the left, or at least the thing that is shambling around wearing the left as a skin suit, not just within gaming, but everywhere else, doing things that are, to my mind, my experience and my history and my education, entirely antithetical to the values of the left in the first place. And so for a while there, I found myself uncomfortably in common cause with people who were more on the right, but who were at least espousing the values of free speech, free expression, leave people alone, maximal freedom, those sorts of things. But then more lately, I'm now getting a sense of betrayal coming from that community, because now that they are at least culturally in a somewhat stronger position, they seem to be wielding the whip with equal fervour, despite having complained about it, just a couple of years ago. Like the whole stupid, pointless Bud Light controversy, or the one around Call of Duty now, where some idiot streamer tried to imply that, letting kids know about the mere existence of gay people was somehow a travesty or grooming or whatever. And I see other people who have previously been heavily invested in individual freedom and anti-censorship trying to get cross-dressers banned from performing book readings and so on, claiming that's grooming. Idiots. And just doubling down and being vicious against trans people because trans activists are awful. But yeah, activists are always awful. It's part of the job, I think. I think I'm awful in the things that I'm an activist for, just not as awful. So that is the most depressing part of the whole fandom thing to me. You know, a wizard should know better, and yet they don't. And so many of these questions and issues seem so obvious to me, but most people are just tribal. I still haven't answered the question. I understand myself and my ethics, and I strive not to be hypocritical, and I lash myself to the mast of what I believe to be just and right and correct, and I pretty much refuse to be swayed by anything other than a logical, reasonable argument. You know, I will make allowances to an extent for friends, in the hopes that my presence and example might help moderate what they get up to. But that's how I cope. Because at the end of the day, you know, when you're on your deathbed, the only person you have to be able to live with is yourself. And if you're morally and ethically consistent over time, that's a hell of a lot easier. And as I've intimated in other videos, yeah, I'm my own harshest critic, and I particularly have a problem with hypocrisy, so I strive to avoid it. Apparently that strong sense of justice is a sign of autism, so I don't know. Yeah, that's what helps me to know myself first, and to be happy in myself with what I say and do first, as much of the time as is humanly possible.